The subject of confidence can stem from millions of ideas. However, coming up with a topic for our conversation, we repeatedly found ourselves pairing up confidence with something much more personal, that being our perception of the self. How did we, as a result of how we viewed ourselves, limit our confidence, shy away from opportunities of being seen, or further hide ourselves from qualities that made us unique and diverse? In this episode, Nonye and I reminisce, yet reflect on the struggle to find our self-confidence. Through difficulties with self-esteem, ranging from our early experiences to learning to see ourselves as capable of speaking up, how did growth provide us with self-awareness of how we see ourselves in the world and our ability to make a difference? Join us as we discuss the changes of our confidence. In this topic, we're going to be discussing self-perception, self-esteem, self-efficacy, confidence lacking, shyness, acceptance, and we talk about how our younger self internalized the fact that we couldn't stand up for ourselves or speak in front of a crowd. We will mention the concept of realizing that we were overthinking. Everyone else has to put on a confident front to a degree. My special guest today is my longtime friend, Nonye. I'll let her introduce herself. Hey, girl.
Hi, my name is Nonye. I work as an ophthalmic technician. Big long word for medical assistant and an eye doctor.
That's cool. That's cool. How long you been doing that?
Oh, for 7 months.
7 months?
Yeah.
So where did we meet?
We met at Christian school, a cute little...
We met at a private school. How long ago was that?
10?
Was it 10? Okay, so 2014. We met, no, it was 2013.
It was 2013, yeah. So it's 11 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, more than a decade. We met in the 8th grade because you literally came in to our school the last year.
No one told me.
That was crazy. And I remember just seeing this girl and I was like, oh my gosh, she obviously, she has no friends and they're gonna be so mean to her. And so I need to be her friend. I don't know. I just would look out for new people and just be like, oh, I have to reach you. You have no idea what you're about to go through. The school was horrible.
Yeah.
What were your experiences or thoughts of coming in 2013 to that school?
It was definitely different. I'd been going to the school right next door for forever. And so decided to leave that school because I was one of the only girls in the class. It started getting smaller. I was like, obviously things aren't working out here. So I should just go over and change schools. But it was very different. The culture was different. People were different. And it's tough coming into what is essentially the last year of school at a new place because everyone already knows each other. Mm-hmm. So many cliques are already established. And I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere. So it was hard to just jump in.
Yeah, I literally can't imagine. I felt so bad. But we stayed being friends after because I feel like with that school, it was weird who I stayed friends with and connected with. It was super weird. And I was like, I did not expect to still be talking to you 10 years down the road. But here we are. And I'm glad we kept in touch because you literally were not mean to me. And that was surprising because I was just used to being attacked every single day of my life. And I was like, for what? So here we are now, 11 years later, looking back, full grown adults with careers, and we graduated school and we made it in some shape or form. We're struggling, but we're still here. And I don't know, it just means a lot to have known someone for that long. That's just incredible, and not everyone gets to have that. So yeah, really happy you're on my podcast today. So we're going to be talking about the changes in our confidence and how growing essentially shaped that, what led to that, how we struggled as a kid with being able to do basic things like speaking up, defending ourselves, saying stuff that we wanted, and how it basically shaped us into who we are today. So I'll open it up with the first question for you, and that is, when I say the word confidence, what startles you the most about this word?
Well, ironically, for something that has to do with internal thoughts and the self, it mainly manifests in outward actions. Confidence is something that you exude, something that people can see, not necessarily something that just lies within, when was the last time you thought about what confidence looked like? I mean, it's usually the model with the good strut or the baseball player with the good pitch or the good hit. Mm-hmm. It was something requiring skill or something that you yourself wouldn't do because maybe you lack the self-assurance that you need to perform. If we're thinking about childhood struggles with confidence specifically, I had so little of it to begin with. Mm-hmm. You could almost say I didn't even really have any struggles at that point because I didn't really have any. For example, when the girls picked on me in class, I took all their comments to heart because I didn't have that inner voice to tell me that it wasn't true. How could I do A if people are saying I can't and I don't believe it by myself? That kind of thing becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where because you have those stereotypes placed on you and you internalize those thoughts, then suddenly, like, oh yeah, I can't actually do it. And then you don't. The whole idea of growing up as shy for me as well, this kind of plays in together
Yeah.
with the confidence bit. This mentality was a contributor to my shyness growing up, apart from being a poster child for, the introvert
Yeah.
TM. Like, why do I need to go out and do things with other people if bad things will happen? That's what kind of I was saying to myself. Why do I need to step out there and put myself out there? There's no point in jumping in there if I can't do those things. So I just sort of, went back into my shyness and introvertedness. Obviously I'm not suited to handle any of it at all.
Yeah, for sure. I do remember, like, as early as I can remember, I was labeled as the shy kid, or like teachers would say it, adults would say it, other students would say it. Like, it was just a fact that was kind of put, like a label that was placed on me, and I never liked it because I didn't like being called shy. To me, it had a very negative connotation, and I was like, well, I can't help being shy. Like, that's just who I am, I guess, and I'll take it up as my identity because it's something that people have given it, something that people have given to me. Like, that girl is shy, she doesn't talk. And of course there were other factors why I didn't talk. Number one, the language barrier. Number two, I didn't want to talk to you, like, you made me uncomfortable. And then number three, I didn't know that I was capable of being able to be outgoing and like speak my mind. Like, in a way, like, as a kid, I didn't feel like I had that right. And that goes a lot with like feeling like very different in your environment, which is something we're gonna talk about later, which is huge in the whole confidence discussion on why we lacked it. But yeah, like, you were labeled a shy kid. I was, and a lot of other kids too, is what I hear. And then I see on TikTok, and I was like, I was labeled a shy kid, but it is opposite from the truth because they grow up and they're a completely different people. Like, look at me now doing a whole ass podcast. Look at you now speaking on my podcast. Okay, like, look at us being leaders in like our career fields and everything. It is not what people wanted to label at us as, like, as children. And it's just it I don't know, it makes me a little bit upset because in the back of my mind I was like, people are not seeing my potential that I know I have, but I don't know how to get it out. And it's just it's a whole journey of self-discovery, of course. But my other question is, do you have any early memories of feeling helpless, like you never had confidence no matter what you did?
I know that when I had to do something like give a presentation, I often, would ask myself, like, why can't I be the person in my head? Why can't I just give out this presentation on this chemistry topic the way I want to? Like, in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm saying everything that I need to say. I'm hitting all my bullet points. I'm looking directly at the presenter. I'm giving gestures. I'm dynamic. I'm cool, not stuttering. I'm all these different things. But when I get to the presentation itself, I'm stuttering. I'm nervous. I'm not looking out at anybody. And yeah, with this image in my head, I would create a version of myself that could rival like the best public speaker out there. But when it came down to it, none of it came to fruition. Everything I tried to do to become this imaginary person didn't really work. And this kind of carried over into other things that required a little bit of confidence. This is just like that instance is like a microcosm of like how my confidence didn't really manifest. I couldn't be the person in my head that I wanted to be, essentially.
You said it affected your self-esteem, or it made it lower. Like, talk to me about that.
Yeah, it fed into the self-esteem generating machine that was turned on many, many, many years ago. I felt as though my body and my natural tendencies like kept me in a prison that my mind and desires had already broken free from. Wasn't confident. I couldn't do things, the stuff I wanted to do. obviously I couldn't do it. So like, and it's more of that sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, like internalizing those thoughts. What I'm thinking in my head about myself that I could be is chained up in a prison that is my body. And, that made me feel terrible. Why can't I just do what I want to do? Why can't I be this person that's perfect that I visualize in my head? And so that just kind of fed into itself.
Yeah, of course. Like very early on in school, like you were mentioning, what kids hear that is said about themselves, they take it to heart and they overthink it, but they have no choice on the matter, of course. Like I remember being told like I wasn't as fast as at reading as the other kids because I didn't speak English at home. I wasn't good at math because I just didn't understand the concept fast enough as the other kids. Like I was generally like a little bit slower and a little bit behind, and like I just struggled a lot in like that area because what the things that teachers were saying about me really like stuck to me. It didn't until I was about 10 years old and they were like, I think you need extra help. And that was the big like the big punch in the face. And it was like, oh, something is very wrong with me because I don't fit into like what other kids are like I don't fit into that mold. And I know I was different, but I didn't know I was different in that term, in the academic sense, because we're all in school, we're all the same age. Like, why are we all not like the same that way? Like, this is something I could have grabbed onto that we are similar in that way, but it wasn't the case either. So I was like, oh, I really am different in that capacity as well. So something must be wrong with me. And it wasn't only academics, it was like athleticism. It was, I don't have a talent. I don't know what I like. I don't know what I can do. There is nothing special about me. So I'm just a nobody. And of course that played into my low self-esteem because I was like, I am nothing, like I'm not good at anything. And it was like a mindset that I would continue for years and years and years in my schooling because I was like, there's nothing really to me, like I'm just here, like there's nothing special about me, and there's like I feel like I don't have potential. And of course I would play like such an issue to like such a role as I grew. And I really felt like I was defective because I would never meet like a certain level. I was never normal. I was never accepted. And that really got to my head. But yeah, similar to that, when we talk about like low self esteem, how do you think this played a role in the way you would grow up to perceive yourself?
It made it a lot worse.
Yeah.
Like so much worse. I'd start comparing myself to other people, and if they're able to do what I'm not able to do, it's like that reinforces, more of what you were saying
Yeah.
too. Like, oh, obviously I'm defective. I'm a broken doll. There's something wrong with me. And obviously maybe they had the same thoughts too. Oh, maybe they couldn't do something, but they were able to just visualize in their head what they were supposed to do, and they broke free from the prison that their body was keeping themselves in. They're able to do that. Why can't I do that? I'm
Yeah.
just the odd one out in
Yeah.
that scenario.
But I feel like the exact same way. Like for some reason, the kids were able to get out of their head in that way, and I wasn't. And this whole time, like I thought I was like, there's got to be someone telling them and like encouraging them, and just there's got to be like this life hack that they have and they know how to be confident that I just can't figure out. And I was like, is it my life? Is it my home? Is it my parents? Like I don't understand. Like why is everything wrong with me? Like why can't I have something that makes me in a way similar but in a way that I am able to stand out from everyone else? Because I don't want to stand out in a negative way because that's always been the case. I want to do something that gets that positive attention, that gets that reward, that has people congratulating me. Like why can I never be that? And it just really got to my head. But a little bit of how like you came about that, or like growing essentially, what allowed you to overcome that childhood shyness?
I'd still say that I'm shy in some ways. I'm definitely not this big extrovert. Yeah, I haven't like burst out of the shell, suddenly changed my personality to extrovertedness. But something that has helped me, though, is the idea that actually most people have their reservations too. Most people have these internal thoughts that they're struggling with, and maybe it seems as though everyone else has it figured out, and maybe it seems like they're being the person that they envision themselves in their head. Everyone still has something that they're insecure about. And I have to remind myself that even if I mess up and do something that I wasn't suited for, quote unquote, no one is going to remember what I did. In fact, at the most stressful times, other people are going to be thinking about themselves and think that they are not suited for something, that they're not as confident about it. If I have an embarrassing moment, or if I have something that I feel a lot of pressure doing, something that I'm scared to do, and I mess up somehow, I just try and remind myself that in that moment, I'm the only one that's going to be thinking about this years later. No one else is going to. In fact, at their most stressful points in life, other people are going to be thinking about the moments that they were overthinking, or they were stressing, or they made a mistake, or they weren't the person in their head. Everyone has those thoughts. No one has actually figured out the code to being the person in their head. That's something I have to remind myself every day. With that kind of mentality, it becomes easier to do things in front of people without hesitation, really. So
Really good points. Yeah, that's definitely like it's a whole mindset and it's a whole shift in your mindset. There are so many factors that can definitely contribute to that. And I think like you mentioned a couple of just like being able to assess that we are all kind of in the same boat in a way, because we all are going to face that, like, why am I not good enough and how can I break from that? But also like it's just learning that at the end of the day, like we all have our own problems, and it's not like they're going to remember that one specific detail that you did and like way back when. Like it really helps you. It gives you a sense of peace and like tranquility in the matter, knowing that we each live our own lives, and like we're gonna definitely stress about our own issues way more than remembering that one time you did that thing. But yeah, overcoming shyness is definitely something that has not been easy. It took so many years for me, and I honestly feel that it wasn't until I was about 18 to 20 is when I started to kind of come out of my shell. It's when I discovered that out, oh, for once, like I have a personality. Because you guys, like in 2020, I had like my biggest relapse of my life and my trauma resurfaced. And like since then, I have not been the same. But it was essentially me being immersed in communities and like groups of people who kind of made me feel seen. And for once, I was like, whoa, this is weird. Like people actually care and want to hear what I have to say, type thing. And just being able to be blessed with having those friend groups, having those friends and that support system for like it was a limited time, but I think it was enough to kind of push me out. Like, yes, you have a voice and you matter, you're a person. And before then, like 18 and under, I honestly didn't view myself as having like basic rights that people had. And this kind of leads into the next topic of like the environment I grew up in had a large factor to do with why I always felt out of place. But to me, it did take those people. It did take people acknowledging what I said, agreeing, responding. A lot of that. I don't know if you have anything else to say about that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that's really big too. Like this whole, when I keep saying that when I'm in my head thing, that's all I can, that's the big theme here. But when you have those thoughts, when you're just so inside your head and you're upset that you can't manifest the personality or action or thing that you want to do outside your body, it's so good to talk to other people, and so good to have friends who can sort of shed light on like, oh, I have this shared experience too, like I have that. That's where that realization also sort of comes from. And when you guys talk about it, support each other, have these conversations, it becomes easier to sort of see that and see that like, oh, everyone else is sort of going through the same thing. I'm not alone.
Yes, absolutely. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is something that I just love talking about and I love trauma bonding with you about. But we're going to be discussing our culture and like being immersed in environments where we were very much the minority, aka our schooling and where we met. But yeah, go ahead, talk about your experience.
So it was definitely a weird experience. I don't know if you've discussed this somewhere else or on another episode already, but in some ways we're kind of like what they'd call third culture kids. We're sort of raised by the rules and expectations of one culture. In this case, our parents, your Spanish background, me, my Nigerian background. And then we spend the most important years of our development somewhere else, which in this case was a white Christian
private
school,
school, yeah.
in Northern Virginia. And, we're expected to somehow navigate the commonality of those things and other cultures that we see every single day. That's a big balancing act to do on a daily basis. For me, this made the identity thing even more confusing. My personal experience, to simplify, there were times that I felt too black for the non-black / white kids that I'd hang out with, but too white for the black kids. And that was really difficult to navigate. It was almost a constant identity crisis. Like, who was I? Really? Who was I every day? Everything that anyone would say to me, it's like they're coming at a lens of like, I should be like this or you should be like that. It's like, who am I supposed to be? And if we're really going back onto this confidence bit here, sometimes I was the only black person in a white space. And, at some point you're expected to be the voice of opinion on behalf of, like, for example, for me, if I said anything I'm expected to be an opinion on behalf of the black community or whatever, which is silly. Because black people are not a monolith. Anything that I'd say, it's suddenly that all black people said it because they hadn't had any sort of experience outside of that, outside of me. I'm sort of the sole representative here. And remember, too, that I'm Nigerian. My point as the child of immigrants is different compared to an African American whose family has been here for generations. It's a fundamentally different thing. And at times like that, I just kind of felt awkward saying anything. I'd even avoid having some conversations because I felt like the whole thing was just wrong. Just contributed to that whole cycle of identity problem, identity spiraling. I don't know how to, it was just awful.
You reminded me of one instance that happened when I was in like 5th grade. As you know, I grew up in the school you came to later, literally from preschool to the 8th grade when we met. But I remember there was one time when I was 11 and there was this like one Hispanic lady that we had as a teacher, and she was out of whack. Like, y'all, like I tell you, like she was Salvadorian, and I just remember everyone absolutely hating her, and she would just act in really horrible ways, and like, no, I hated her too. But I remember a couple of my classmates coming up to me after like experiencing what she was like, and they were like, Nonye, are all like Hispanic people like that? And I was like, no, like I swear, like it's just her, because I could never imagine myself, my mom, or my dad acting in the way that this woman did. And like even my, like relatives or people, other Hispanic people that I knew in like my community, like at the cultural church that I did go to for a time, like I couldn't imagine them acting like that. And I was like, why would you ask such an ignorant question? But no, let's be real right now. Like I am literally their only exposure to the culture.
Right.
And unfortunately, I am placed in this environment where I am the only one, and I am a voice, quote unquote, for this community. I don't want to be. I didn't ask to be. I don't think it was my place to be at that stage of life. But it's all they got, you know? So it's like at a point, it's like, oh, like this really sucks. And like, I really hope they don't get a bad perception about like the Hispanic community because of me, you know? But in the end, I feel like they kind of did. And I was like, it's just something that I struggle with, because I was like, did I contribute to like them being more or less racist to other people they interact with? You know, it's something I really struggle with. And like, I don't talk about that a lot, because in a way, like I grew up and I would continue saying, yeah, I'm whitewashed. Like I'm a whitewashed Latina. Like I don't identify with my community anymore. And like I said, like in a previous episode of like Cultural Conundrum, I was talking about, I genuinely don't identify with my culture anymore based on the traumatic experiences I had at that school. And it's super sad. And I'm trying to get back to my culture every single day, but I kid you not, being raised in such environments takes such a toll on your mind and how you view yourself and how you view your culture, that you don't even want to engage with it anymore in a way. And it's so sad, because to me, I don't know about you, but being in that school broke me in really bad ways. And it really made me struggle a lot with who I was.
Like I said, I worried that I would be saying the wrong thing. You worried that you would, misrepresent people of your community, which is a crazy position to find yourself in as like a teenager.
I'm 11.
Ridiculous.
I know. What limitations did you feel like you had?
Because I had both of my legs dipped into the proverbial cultural pools. I wasn't fully immersed in one or the other.
That.
I eat Nigerian food. I listen to the music. I know the slang, etc. But when a family member speaks to me in the native tongue, they speak like Igbo, Yoruba, or they use local idioms. They ask me to eat kola nut. I have no idea what they were talking about. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing in that moment. Or, right, I partake in what's seen as like Black culture here, some aspects of, popular Black culture in America. But if someone quizzes me on something specific, like, oh, every Black person knows this thing, like the way you eat pickles or some specific thing, I have no idea what they're talking about either. So, just sort of gaps in knowledge on both ends, really.
Mm-hmm. Going off of that, like based on your experiences, do you think you are whitewashed?
I mean, yeah, I guess. For one, I sound this way. This is not necessarily the stereotype, but that's its own problematic thing, assumptions and things like that. But I definitely don't sound the way one might expect me to if I'm supposed to have an accent or things like that. And I'm into things that kind of make a lot of my Black relatives and peers kind of go, huh? Oh, that white people stuff. Mm-hmm. I know that I'm not delusional. I don't go on Tyra Banks and say that I'm white when I'm darker than Uncle Ruckus. Oh. But I have had a lot of non-Black / white influence in my life. Yeah. Mm-hmm. To answer your question.
Yeah, no, for real. Me too. Like after leaving that school, like I could never fit in with people in my cultural groups in high school. I was like, I'm a lost cause at this point. Let me go back to a white private school. And I did for a year in college, and I it was horrible. But I guess that goes to show that, like, in a way, my culture was kind of trying to seep through the cracks. In a way, like, it never did leave me completely, which I'm so grateful. But where I am now, I do feel extremely whitewashed. I feel like I just get along better with different types of people. Like, I relate to them more. Mm-hmm. And these are not people who are, like, of my ethnicity, of my race. And it's just really frustrating. I was like, I wish I could relate to y'all, but I can't. Mm. And it hurts. Like, it's a double identity. It's like a crisis identity, though, that I've faced my entire life. But there are the pros, I guess. You can get around with more people, little increments, but, like, you have a bigger pool to, like, find similarities with, whatever you can take from that. There are positives, there's such big negatives, but, here we are. Another question I have is, like, what negative impact does this have on your perception on yourself?
I'm going to rehash the identity statement that I made before. This idea that I'm too white for Black kids and vice versa. Yes, they call that being an Oreo, the first
an
scenario.
Out Oreo.
Yeah. An inside out
and
Oreo.
I'm the inside out wafer is what I used to say.
Is it really wafer?
I don't know. I made that up when I was around 12 years old, and I think it stuck. I don't know.
Oh my God. Yeah. That is crazy. But yeah, it made me feel as though I'm not enough for anyone, that I will always be on the outside no matter where I was, even amongst people who look just like me. Mm-hmm. And that, was really tough. And to call back again to yet another point I made earlier, this just kind of feeds into the self-esteem machine again. Just this idea that you will never be accepted fully wherever you are. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's no point.
That's super hard, and it's something like we all struggle to accept. I don't think I've let myself accept that this is where I'm gonna be, just like confused and all that. I know I have definitely found really great groups of people that I can get along with where like race, ethnicity does not matter. It's been beneficial to my mental health and all that. But the identity crisis still stands with people who, like, per se, I get in a relationship with. Like, I'm always wondering in the back of my mind what my parents were thinking when they came to America. And I was like, do you understand the impact this is going to have on your kids? Yeah. They're going to be first generation. Like, did you think this through?
Did you think about
because,
that?
like, what if I don't know. Because I know they're like, you should marry, like, within the race or whatever. And I was like, how? I am in literally the, what do they call it here?
Melting pot.
The melting pot.
There you go.
Yes, that is what it is. Where all these races are here. You really expect me to marry like another Salvadorian? Are you for real right now? Because I can barely speak Spanish.
That's so real.
I mean, I could survive, but it's like I'm like, I can't vibe. I don't know. And it's so hard. So that perception on yourself definitely takes a toll because mine is completely shifted. I'd say when I was 7 years old, I still thought I was going to be like a hands down full on Latina at this grown age of 24. And I'm not. And I have so many different views, and I just continuously struggle to find my people. And when I meet someone that isn't concerned about like kind of like my background and things like that, like it does mean a lot because I don't know. There's more things that matter, y'all, than the
Yeah,
color on your skin.
absolutely.
And so I hate like just being clicky in that area because it's like, I never had a click. So I was my own person. I think we all were, and we struggled on the day to day to find out who we were. And to this day, I don't know who I am. I think I'm just my own person. I'm just living my life in America as a first generation, and I'm okay with that. So, yeah.
Period.
How did you develop a new perception of yourself in terms of no longer feeling that you had to limit yourself?
I think that, you kind of touched on this earlier, actually, the positives to sort of being in this
Yeah.
melting pot area. And being, steeped, having your feet kind of dipped into both pools here. I think that having that positive spin on the implication of my culture's fluidity or what have you, whatever, that's inspired me to go farther when I'm talking with people from different cultures. Namely with my experience, I've been able to relate to way more people than before. And I find it easier to see things through other people's perspectives. This helps me push more in my conversations and actually try to expose people to realistic things that people from other cultures deal with on a day-to-day basis. Like, maybe I'm an idealist for all of this. Maybe I'm an idealist for thinking that we're all going to join hands together and sing Kumbaya.
Oh my gosh.
If I know that, one person understands something from someone else's culture a little bit better, and that this could lead to a future that's a little bit more amicable. But I think it's something that's sort of needed at least a little bit. If it's not going to be complete progress, I think it's definitely something necessary for the culture that we have now, especially in this melting pot full of different cultures.
Yes, 100%. We're gonna move on into like takeaways. But like, what is something that has been useful in finding self-confidence for you?
So aside from what helped me get over my shyness, which was, again, basically realizing that everyone else is human and everyone else is probably battling their own self-esteem demons and fighting their own battles and not worried about you. I also found more self-confidence in coming to terms with the abilities that I already have. I couldn't be the person in my dreams, in my head. Sure, okay. And you know what? Maybe I'm never going to get there. Maybe I'm never going to be that person that I'm sort of imagining myself to be. But there are things that I am actually able to do. And while the tool set that I have is not the most amazing, or at least not the most appealing to me, I need to learn to work with this. This is what I have. I need to learn to use it to my best abilities, use this to solve problems that are in front of me, and remember that there is not just one way to solve a problem. Somewhere in my skill set is the ability to solve the problem. I just need to work on different ways to do it. And this is literally how I can build my self-confidence. I can learn to rely on what I've seen myself to be capable of and then execute and then do it again, build back, reverse that self-esteem machine that brings it down, kind of reverse it and make it go the opposite way.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. Like as you grow, you definitely learn more about yourself and you learn what you are good at. I think it's super sad to see people who are like, I'm not good at anything. Like, yes, you are. I think it's just a matter of finding it, and you don't know when you're gonna find it. Like falling in love, you never know. Like it could happen in the blink of an eye. Like you don't know when and where you'll be in life. Like I'm still discovering gifts I have. A year ago I didn't know I could sing. But it is so crazy. But I do think everyone has those God-given gifts in some way, shape, or form that you can definitely build on. Even if you don't think you're good at it, honestly pursuing it, continuing it, mastering a skill can definitely impact you so much and really help with that whole identity crisis. Like, who am I? What am I good at? What do I want to do? Just find something something, then like go for it. I would say it doesn't hurt because life is here to learn. We're here to learn and we're here to build new skills. And then, yeah, of course, my whole thing with self-confidence and how I found it, I would say it took three people. I'm not going to name those people on this podcast. I don't like exposing. What if they don't want to be shared, you know? But I am so thankful that God placed three specific people in my life that believed in me for once. It was crazy because I think like growing up like as a kid, like these are people, yes, I met them when I was younger, but that impact didn't happen until I was like older and like starting college and stuff. But as a young kid, I was like, no one really believes in me, and so I'm not good at anything because like the whole main thing is like what you tell kids they're gonna remember and they're gonna live according to that, and it's super sad. And it does, like, honestly, I think it takes one person to reverse that, one person to believe in you and tell you that it's the complete opposite, and to find your strengths that you can't even see for yourself. And like pointing those things out to me definitely meant the world to me, because for once I regained that sense that I have a purpose and I can make change in this world. Number two, that I have a gift that I can pursue and I am talented in this shape and form, and I can definitely continue building that and make something great out of it. And then number three, like there is nothing wrong with stating an opinion. There is nothing wrong with speaking out and defending yourself, because we are all people, and that is a human given right to speak your truth and to speak what you are passionate about, and anything to, you know, defend yourself, put yourself out there. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And I think a lot of our issues came from being in that school environment where we felt that this group of kids had the right to speak their mind, but we didn't, because there was something flawed with us. Like we were different and they were all going to view us weird. And I think it was that also that fear, like even the teacher's going to view us weird. Like how dare we like state our truth in this environment, because we're not going to be taken seriously because we're different, and we're not going to be heard because we're different. And that is so damaging. And like that's the whole concept thing. The issue I have with private schools, I don't know about you, like I have really strong opinions that there are some situations where you should not put your child in it, because it is very damaging.
Yeah.
Anything you have to add?
Yeah, I think that when you were talking to earlier about this kid and that kid, why am I not like these kids and that kids? I've just never been a fan of the culture of like in private schools. I think maybe either because of the smaller volume of people, and therefore one person might have an opportunity to shine amongst 40 kids versus amongst 600 kids at a public school. I think that just sets up a culture of like the poster children, and then the rest. That kind of plays into, you know, what you were talking about why am I not like them, being different. And it's not even necessarily like there's something even wrong with you. It's just sort of the culture that there are just kids who are accepted more so than others, and kids who are put on a bigger pedestal, whether or not it's because of their actual talents or because of other politics that are at play. That, you know, either, you know, their parents' connections, favoritism, other things we won't talk about.
You name it.
So
it's all there. With my final question, I want to ask you, how do you plan to move forward with a newly found confidence?
I mean, obviously the answer is just to slay and serve cunt. Duh.
Period.
The goal for me is to sort of take one day at a time. Where I find fault with myself, I sort of just take a deep breath. I look at the situation, see it for what it is, look at what I can do. Like I said, I keep kind of going back and forth to stuff I say before, but I mean, this is just sort of my internal monologue. Like I look at what I can do and then go from there. Then I try again with the information that I have, what worked, what didn't. Perhaps, maybe, you know, I hear bad things about myself again, and I'm tempted to believe them. I still have that. That didn't really go away. I'm still tempted to accept the negativity that people hurl at me, but I have to really force myself to stop and think, is this really true? What are the examples? What's the proof that they have? And if it's true, I go back and I assess the situation again and look at what I can do to improve, what I can do to change, if it's true. And then on top of this, you know, I also ask if the statement mentioned the negative thing said, like as a human being who's trying their best, really. I have yet to answer no.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think I want to tie it all together by just summarizing like 3 takeaway points. that we definitely gained from this episode. I definitely learned a lot from you for sure. I really like the point you made on just finding a skill and just growing it. I think it helps a lot with like finding out who you are. As children, we struggled to find out what we were good at because simply we were continuously oppressed and we were like, you're not good at this, you're not good at anything, so you will never be good. But it is such a horrible mindset to instill on a child. Like, but as we grew, we found out skills that we were good at. We found out people groups that accepted and loved us for who we are. We didn't have to change anything about ourselves. And I think that was definitely impactful.
We've touched on many of the important aspects of what to do to continue to grow. I'd say that people who want to cut down on the confidence of a child early may be jealous of the potential that child has.
Yeah, that's something I didn't think about till later on, for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely beware of people who are telling a child who, again, as we talked about, will internalize everything that you say to them. They're just maybe trying to rob them of their joy and their spark and their potential because they know they have it.
Yeah, and for sure. And then one final thing, don't be afraid to speak your mind and your truth at any age. If something is wrong, seek for help and say it. It was definitely such a thing, like being shy, being labeled as shy. I felt like I couldn't really say anything. But I do want to encourage, even like now, like if something bothers me, I have to say it. I'm sorry. I'm fragile. I can't hold it in. I don't know about you, but literally, like, I'm so big on that. I mean, if it bothers you, say something. It's super big. But yeah, I'd like to thank you again for joining me on my podcast, Nonye. It meant so much. Here we are 11 years later, thriving and striving. But we survived. We made it out. Woo. So proud.
Thank you for having me. This was a great little conversation that we had. And, I learned some things from you and had some insights on, the things that you dealt with and like how our experiences were so parallel.
Thank you so much for being on my podcast. As you guys all know, stay tuned for episode 9 that is coming out soon. And again, a big thank you to everyone who listened and all my listeners and subscribers. Please don't forget to like and share with your friends on any platform. You can catch this podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. So that's basically all I have for you today. Bye.
Bye.